Ooh, thank you, ma'am. All right. How's everybody tonight? Let me see. You tired? Well, all right. Tonight we're going to talk about sponsor. This is a lesson that gets me in trouble all the time, too. Principle 4, openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. Happy are the pure at heart, for they will see God. Matthew 5:8. It's also a part of step 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Lately, we've been talking about the importance of our relationship to Jesus, and that is important. The deeper our relationship gets with Jesus, the more and more we can turn over to God. And it doesn't matter what you're going through, if it's addiction, depression, anxiety, overeating, yes. They all have one thing in common. It's you don't do those things alone. Something normally triggers something. So it's only logical for us to see that we can't do this by ourselves, that we need help. So whenever you look into your recovery or whatever you're dealing with, you actually see that you need 3 relationships. The most important is with Jesus. But in that relationship with Jesus is also a relationship with community, a life group, a cell group, and also with your church. And last, you need a relationship with your sponsor or accountability partner. Sponsors, there's 3 scary words, I say, in recovery. Sponsors 1, the next one's inventory, and then admins. Admins. Listen to me, I combined 2. But a sponsor is, it just simply means it's someone you can turn to in your time of need. As we work on ourselves, they play an important role in keeping us grounded, centered, and on the straight and narrow. From here on out, it will all be about coming clean with your past, the things that others may have never heard about you. That's where that sponsor comes in, because you play that real close role with it. Job 5:18, go figure, I throw Job in here. God hurts, but he also bandages up. He heals, but his hands also heal. That's a weird way of saying, we're in recovery, but I'm not saying it's God's fault, but everything passes through God's hands. But we also have to see the difference between us and Job. Job was fighting the devil all by himself. Job had 3 friends that just kept beating him down, mocked him, and his wife told him to curse God and die. So at least in our recoveries with sponsor, you need someone to be there to encourage you. That way you just don't get beat up like Job did. And a lot of people, whenever we start a step study and I tell them they need a sponsor, they're like, no, I really don't need nobody. And I'm like, yeah, you really do. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple of questions. Why do I need a sponsor or accountability partner? What are the qualities of a sponsor? What does a sponsor do? And how do I find one? And what is the difference between a sponsor and accountability partner? So the first thing is, why do I need a sponsor? And there's basically 3 reasons you need a sponsor. First off, it's biblical. Ecclesiastes tells us 2 are better off than 1, because either they can work more efficiently together. If one of them falls, the other one can help pick them up. But if someone is alone, there's no one to help him. 2 people can resist an attack that would defeat one person alone. Also, if we go a little bit deeper into Proverbs, it tells us iron sharpens iron. So a person can sharpen another person. And it's within our nature not to want to be alone. I mean, God made Eve for Adam. He made Sarah for Abraham. And we can go through the Bible and see that God has made somebody for each one of us. So, why do I need a sponsor? Having a sponsor is key. Anything that you deal with in life. The first key that we're going to talk about is maintaining an honest view of reality. I've yet to see someone fail that actually did the work, that actually put in the 100%, that actually took the step study seriously, that didn't just give the yeah, the no, or just the nods. I've never seen anyone do a complete step study and say, man, I just wasted 6 months of my life, if they really gave it their all. And having someone there to help you helps keep you honest. Another key is just being consistent and constantly doing the hard work. I mean, when the weather's bad in the summertime, a lot of us, we have commitments and we're like, it's raining. I'm guilty. I stay home from church. It was cold. I didn't want to get up. But we also have to learn that sometimes we do need to take a break. And I'm not talking about taking a break from your recovery, but I'm talking about taking a break for yourself. But we also need to remember that while we're on that break, what put us in that situation is still going on. It hasn't left. The third element is maintaining a spiritual program with Jesus through prayer, meditation, and studying His Word. You see, step studies, meetings, and fellowship that we have, it's all great. Your sponsor can help you, keep you centered, but they can also hold you accountable for being in God's Word. I tell everybody that comes to Celebrate Recovery, the goal isn't to be in Celebrate Recovery for 40 years. The goal is to get you in the Word, get you in the church, get you connected with other people, and in that way, that's whenever your healing's really going to start to begin. Let me see. You see, and this is where I get in trouble a lot. Most people that come to these meetings, they're unchurched. They're church hurt. They have issues. And I've even had some people just say, I don't like people. That's what got them in trouble in the first place. They have no idea who God are, and they're missing that Jesus factor. That's what I was missing. Even though I did my own little step study a long time ago. I did the ones I wanted, and I didn't do the ones I didn't want. I knew God, but I didn't know who Jesus was. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle with. Some come here out of curiosity, and some just reached a plateau in recovery. We have a lot of people from AA. We have a lot of people from NA, and it's like, all right, I know where I need to be. I need that Jesus. I need to get that factor. So it's like it's another way to grow. Nevertheless, just being by yourself, it doesn't work. Having a sponsor or accountability partner is the best guard against relapse. Relapse to me is going back to an old mindset. A lot of people say, oh, I drank, I relapsed. See, I get in trouble right here too. Yes. But it's going back to that old mindset where everything I just learned, I'm going to throw out the window and I'm just going to try to do things the way I thought I could do it in the first place. You know, I don't look at, well, I drank a beer. I don't beat someone up and say, oh, man, you relapsed. You had a momentary lapse of reasoning. That's all you had. You had a little lapse. So it's like whenever you have the right people in your life, it'll help guard against that. You know, just for having someone that can provide feedback and not judgment helps you stay on track. They can also help you see your old dysfunctional, your self-defeating patterns whenever they begin to surface and quickly point them out. Sherry will do that to me a lot of times. She'll just kind of give me that look. I'm like, yes, ma'am. What's going on? She'll see I'm getting aggravated. She'll start to see I'm ready to lose it. You see, Ecclesiastes 7:5 tells us it's better to be criticized by a wise man than to be praised by a fool. The trouble with most of us is that we would rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. So we go next. What are qualities of a sponsor? Through good advice lies deep within. Yep, that's it. I forgot to put my cue there. Through good advice lies deep within a counselor's heart. The wise man will draw it out. We have to start asking a couple of things. Does his walk match his talk? We hear that in church a lot of times, where their walk don't match their talk. When people are new to recovery, you're not going to find any of that. They're just learning. I mean, some of us been around church a long time, and we get on Ambassador Caffrey, and yeah, my walk ain't matching my talk on Ambassador. The signs I'm giving, that's not peace signs that I'm giving. But mainly, we gotta help them and show to swap out bondage for freedom and not just for something socially acceptable. I have a lot of people that I know that, they went through rehab, they went through recovery, and they're not doing the drugs or they're not drinking anymore, but they just took that and they swapped over for another addiction. where, you know, they're hitting the gym all the time. I have some, they run. It's like, man, I run 10 miles a day. I'm like, dude, you run by yourself. But, you know, a sponsor can help you do that. You want somebody that's actually living the 8 principles or the 12 steps, and they just don't know the lingo. A lot of people know the lingo, but they don't actually live it. Their lifestyle should actually match that. Be certain that the person that you choose is someone whose life example is worthy of imitation, because you're going to start to roll some of the way things you do, the way you handle things towards your sponsor. You also want to know that Jesus wants you free. He doesn't just want you chained down to another program. You know, we hear a lot, you know, God's kingdom, he says, my kingdom has many rooms. I doubt there's a Celebrate Recovery going on in one of them rooms. I doubt there's an AA going on. I doubt there's small groups going on in that room. So whenever people come and they're new and they're fighting, that sponsor can kind of help guide you towards that, to where you just don't get locked up on it. You want to know, do they have a growing relationship with Jesus? Do you see the character of Jesus developing in them? And this doesn't mean that they have it all figured out, because I don't think any of us have everything figured out. But whenever you do see that person, even though they're struggling, do they turn to Jesus and God for answers, or do they just stop someone in the hallway and say, hey, we need to talk? Because no matter what you're battling, it starts with God. I say it all the time. I'm married. It's God, it's Sherry, and then everybody else can pick a name. Those are the two I go to first. Does he express the desire to help others on the road to recovery? I forgot to click it. What is the difference between helping others and trying to fix others? That's what happens. We get a lot of people in recovery that just want to tell you what to do, listen to what I say, do as I say, and you're going to be healed in 6 weeks. It don't work like that. Some people need that, but a lot of people just coming in, they don't want that. They never asked for your advice. They asked just for an ear for you to listen to. And we need to be careful to guard that sponsorship relationship from becoming unhealthy and codependent. There are people in recovery that are addicted to drama. And I've seen it before where some of those people get involved in your recovery, but they're fighting their own addiction still. So it's like they're listening to you, but they're not offering you anything. So we got to be careful about that also. It turns into, instead of them offering the ear, they're going to start to offer you a checklist. And there is no checklist in recovery. There is none. Do they show compassion and care and hope, but not pity? You don't want someone that feels sorry for you. You want someone to be sensitive to your pain, but you don't want them to always feel sorry for you. Because you need to see if they care as much about you as you do about them. Because what happens a lot is whenever people first come in and they do get a sponsor, they're inseparable. One guy would tell me that. He says, he said, I asked my sponsor, hey, what you doing this weekend? He says, well, I got to go move so-and-so. I'm moving with you. He went over there, moved with him. These guys started fishing clubs, hunting clubs, and everything, to where every weekend they were together and they were together. Are they a good listener? Honesty cares about what you have to say. Listening and hearing is 2 different things. I hear Sherry all the time, but it doesn't mean I'm listening to Sherry all the time. And the only time I know that I am hearing her, but I am not listening to her, she will use my full government name at me. I know right then and there something isn't right. So we got to get, and I know I'm guilty for it, because the world we live in, you jump on TikTok and you're not really paying attention to nothing. You scroll, and we end up bringing that into our relationships. Are they strong enough to confront you if you go back in denial or procrastination? This don't mean you're going to get text every day, throughout the day, calls throughout the night. I tell a lot of people whenever they come to ask me, hey, what do you think about sponsoring me? Like, I'm not going to call you every day, and I'm not going to text you every day. I'm not that kind of sponsor. I'm not going to wake up every morning. One guy got upset with me because I told him, I said, I'm not going to call you every morning and say, good job of not smoking meth last night, because you're not supposed to be doing it in the first place. I said, because that builds up a codependency. If one day I don't call you, or one day I don't text you, or if I have a life emergency, it can throw you off. So I'm not that kind of sponsor. And I tell a lot of people that from the beginning. But I mean, I remember their milestones, which they made. I do check in on them. If I don't see them at like meetings, or I don't see them at church, I'll check in throughout the day. But you do have some sponsors, they'll set up a time every morning, 8 o'clock, it's prayer time. My life is real busy. I do have a group of men I do that with, but it's like whenever someone's going to ask you to be a sponsor, be just honest with them and tell them, look, this is how things are. I've done that for ever since I started, and we found out some people, that's what they kind of wanted. They wanted someone that was going to walk with them and not run ahead of them. And then some people know they want someone to be there all the time. You know, I've had the 2 a.m. phone calls. I've had the 6-hour trips to go get someone. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm cold-hearted or anything, but it's like, as a sponsor, you also got to realize if you have too many people, I know some people will tell me, man, I sponsor 30, 40 people. I'm like, dude, you got like 20 too many. There's no way you can keep track of 50 people. There's no way. So it's like you have to sit down and you have to see what you're capable of handling and what you're capable of doing before you go anywhere. You need to see, do they offer suggestions? Are you seeing options or alternatives that you were unable to find on your own? A good sponsor can take an objective view and offer suggestions. They should never give you orders. You do not belong to a sponsor. They can give you advice, they can give you guidance, they can give you directions, but if they say you have to do this, 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 and this, it's not barking orders. Because I know people that in a step study, we're on lesson 5 and they're still fighting denial. Everybody is different. It takes everybody longer. So, you know, one guy, whenever I first came into recovery, you know, he just came up to me and he says, man, you got to have a King James Version Bible. And I'm like, King James ain't for me, dude. Nope. I love Shakespeare. I can't read that. And whenever he's seen the version I had, well, that's not a real version. You see, that's not going to make it all. Because it's already from the beginning, you have to do as I say. And it just don't work like that. Can they share your struggles? You know, are they willing to open up and be vulnerable and transparent? You know, I don't know about you, but I don't want a sponsor that says, man, I worked all the steps and I'm good. I don't have to do anything ever again. I try to be as transparent as possible with everybody. It's just how I've learned. There's some things that I've experienced that a lot of other people haven't, and there's some that has. The more transparent I can be with a person, the more they can feel more comfortable in here. We sat at one of these tables one night during a potluck, and we were talking about South Park, and the guy freaked out at first. He says, oh, I said, no, man, you're good. Don't worry about that. You know, but it's like, oh, you can't do that here. You have to have somebody who's comfortable, because once they see you're not going to judge them for that, that vulnerability will go down. They'll actually open up for you. So, what is the role of a sponsor? They can discuss details that are too personal for you to take up in a meeting. You know, the things that we hear sometimes, it's like I'm the lowest form on earth. You know, that's a phrase I hear a lot whenever I'll help somebody with their inventory. They're like, man, you know, I'm so embarrassed. No, dude, we've all done stuff. You know, or okay, I admit it, I did such and such, but it's not like I killed anybody. I've heard that too. Sure, I did this, but they did that. And that's something that we work through. But the sponsor's role is to model Christ's grace, forgiveness, and to give a sense of perspective. They're also there to shape things that you can't talk, to share things that you can't talk about in small group or a step study. I tell a lot of people when we do step study, answer all the questions. I know you can't share a lot of that in your group, but you have your safe person. Answer them, share it. Our small groups that we have after CR, it's normally focused like around the lesson, around sponsor. There's a lot of things going on in your life that you just don't have that time for, because sometimes we only get 5 minutes to talk, you know, depending upon the size of the group. That's where that sponsor comes into play. You can give them a call and you can kind of, like I say, dump your purse on them. So Are they available at times of crisis or potential relapse? You know, I've always told newcomers that when you know that I've sponsored, you're going to start feeling old things. It's going to happen. The more you talk about your past, it's only natural. You're going to have emotions that come up. And I tell them a lot of times also, I say, look, if you're on the verge of a mental breakdown, you're fighting depression, you're isolating, if they did use and you're thinking of using, call me before. Call me when you see it building up. If you don't, call me afterwards, because it doesn't matter. I don't care if you called me before, you call me afterwards, because it tells me I'm going to give you the same grace that Christ gives us. I'm going to give you the same forgiveness, because I've done it too. I probably relapsed how many times in the beginning? Like every day for 2 or 3 months. It's like, oh, today's a new day. Nope, not come noon, it wasn't. So you can't really beat people up over it. Do they serve as a sounding board to provide an objective point of view? That's the main thing. You need somebody that you can talk to, and they're going to actually listen, and they're going to give you responses back. First, that is godly, and two, meet you where you are. Sometimes a couple of people want to get ahead of themselves and say, well, before you do this, no. Whenever you start giving your will over to God, God's going to start moving in you at different speeds. The sponsor's there to help guide you through that. But the sponsor is not there to say, okay, we need to stop right here. Because if God is pushing you to go make an amend, you go make an amend. So you get back to that. Are they going to listen to you and not just dictate what you need to do to you? Do they encourage you to work the principles at your own speed? It's not the sponsor's job to work the principles for you. It's the sponsor's job to say, hey, y'all are in lesson 10. I think we need to go back and work powerless, because I see you're struggling with that right now. It's someone that can help you when you get stuck, and it's someone that can slow you down whenever you're working way too fast. You see, encouraging, that's what encouragement is. Encouragement is guidance. Encouragement is getting them to a point to where it's not just a checklist, because a lot of people in recovery, that's the first thing they want to do. They want that checklist. It's not just a checklist. It's to slow them down. It's to help them dig a little bit deeper than others. And that's one rule I break in step studies all the time. It's like, oh, we're not supposed to ask questions. If I see you're on the verge of a breakthrough, or somebody does it to me, oh, we're going to push if we can, because it only helps you open up. Because by that time, we're used to each other. We've just grown like a little family. So I get in trouble for that a lot. I break that rule. I guess that goes back to that God complex that I spoke about on Thursday. Most important, do they model the lifestyle that results in working the 8 principles? It's difficult to inspire others to accomplish what you're not willing to do yourself. A good sponsor lives the principles. And it's also important that they don't take over your recovery. They need to stay in their lane, and they just need to keep you in between the lines on yours. Can a sponsor be fired? Yep, been fired. Then told somebody, look, you sponsored me a long time. I met somebody. Man, we really connected. Go. Can a sponsor drop you? Yes. I've had to drop one already. There's never a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it. It's just like we're not connecting. We're not meeting. We're not working anything out. And I just get the blame for everything. I don't mind getting the blame. That's perfectly fine. But so it can go both ways. It is not a lifetime position. So how do you find a sponsor accountability partner? First off, got to be the same sex as you. Now, I get in trouble right here also. I do encourage people, because any psychiatrist or any therapist at some point in whatever you're seeing them for will want to bring your spouse into it. That should be the goal. The goal should be at some point to be able to bring your spouse into your recovery. It gives them peace of mind knowing why you were acting so crazy for a little bit of time, or why you're depressed all the time and things like that. But as a sponsor, no. Man with man, women with women. And that's just mainly, it's mainly just because there's some things that men need to talk about. There's some things women need to talk about. And there's some things that's really hard to talk to your spouse about. But through those other groups, eventually everybody can come together. Also, can you relate to the person's story? You know, if you have a fear of clowns that ride tricycles with 5 balloons tied to the handlebars and say, cray, cray, you're going to have a problem finding a sponsor that has that. But maybe he's scared of that because he was abused growing up. You might be able to relate to that abuse even though y'all don't share the same fear. Even though you don't share depression with them. You may have anxiety to where you're always high strung, they're always depressed. But you find that part of their story that you can actually relate to. If you ask someone to be a sponsor and they say no, don't take it personal. I've seen that a lot of times where it's like, man, I prayed and prayed and prayed and God led me to this person and then they told me no. I'm like, they maybe have enough people. You know, sometimes, especially with newcomers that come in, people fresh in recovery, that takes a lot of time. It does. I've spent 4 or 5 hours a day on the phone with them. So someone else will come up and I'm just like, look, not right now. I won't tell them I'm with, I won't give them the whole backstory. I'll just tell them, look, right now, dude, my life is full, So don't ever take that personally. Let me see. It jumped on me. Ask God to lead you to the partner of His choosing. He knows everyone in the room, everyone in your life. The one thing I do tell people is a red flag is if someone walks up to you and says, hey, I think I need to sponsor you. Take that with prayer. Because again, we have people in recovery that are addicted to stuff like that. And sometimes we'll have those people with the 50 sponsees. So now you've been praying about this person and you just don't have the courage to go ask them and they come ask you. That's not a red flag to me. But just for someone walking up out of the blue and say, hey, man, I think I need to sponsor you. That's always, there's always something about that. So what's the difference between a sponsor and an accountability partner? Sponsor someone who's done a step study. Now, this is where I get in trouble also. That doesn't mean a pastor can't sponsor you. See, in Celebrate Recovery for the longest time, it was, they have to do the 12, they have to do the step study. They have to have a year of sobriety. Who am I to tell you Pastor Lane cannot sponsor you? That's a man of God. Or you have a group leader. Y'all have Bible study every week. You think highly of that person. I know a gentleman right now. He's probably sponsored more people in CR than the actual sponsors in CR. He's led more men to Christ than is unreal. So who are we to tell him that no? Also, if you have a sponsor that is in AA or NA, as long as they're a believer in Christ, there's no problem with it. What I always do, though, is I lead it up to whoever's leading the step study to decide. Because it is not for us to tell you who you are comfortable with. It's not for me to say, no, these are the 4 people you have to choose from. That's just not right. And I did get some clarity from that from a webinar that I went to. An accountability partner is someone you ask just to hold you accountable in areas of recovery or issues as maintaining your attendance, journaling, and journaling. Journaling is important. I never understood that growing up, never understood why my sisters kept little diaries. I got into journaling. Now I know why. You're getting your thoughts out of your head. They're not just bouncing around anymore. The main goal of that relationship is to encourage one another. Your team can be as big as you want. And your sponsor is a coach, and your accountability partners are the one that plays first, second, and third base. That's kind of how it works. So the main thing is you need to start building you a village. They say, it takes a village. Community is important, just not in recovery. I preach community to everybody. I'm like, every time somebody in this church tells me, man, I really like doing this. You know who else likes doing that? So-and-so. Why don't you go talk to him? Because I know how important that is. Just the want to belong is real high. And whenever you can combine all that together, I mean, there's people, they get together. There's some women get together and they craft that I know. Like I said, there's a bunch of guys. They get together every other month and they go fishing. There's a guy with a lease They go deer hunting. I'm not a hunter. It's cold. I want to stay in my house. But you got to build that community. Now, me, I want to build a ribeye club because I like to eat my steaks. But you find a bunch of people that like to get together and grill on an afternoon, and Joe's gladly will let us use his backyard. Anytime, you see, we can get together and we can do that, where a bunch of men can just get together. There's nothing tied to it. It's not like you get over there and somebody just stands up there with the Bible and just beats you with verse and verse and verse. No, we play games. We just hang out. We just can be ourselves. That is what's going to bring you out of whatever your funk is quicker than anything else. And I mean, it's biblical. You can go throughout the whole Bible and you can see that. So the last thing I'm going to say is, and this is the hardest part also, listen to God in your prayers. When he says move, move. That's my problem. I don't want to move. I want to wait and see what happens. But every time I wait and see what happens, it gets worse. So if there is something that you're struggling with and you have a connection to somebody, start to build your village. Build it one by one by one. People start to think, oh, they have a clique. No, they have a community. It's not a clique. It's a community. If you don't belong to that community, go start your own. We used to have Thanksgiving at our house every year, 40, 50 people. Them 40, 50 people started hosting Thanksgiving at their home and bringing other people in. That's the goal. That's what you want to do, because God placed something on your heart to do to help others, and it showed helping others. So if one person walks in there and they fight depression all Thanksgiving because they don't have the family, now they have a place to go. So I want to thank y'all.